We're heading toward a future where owning a home could become a financial nightmare for a very simple reason: the lack of water to sustain life. This isn't some exaggerated scenario out of a dystopian movie. It's a very real threat backed by rigorous scientific research from credible institutions like the United States Geological Survey and the Bureau of Reclamation. Their findings outline a dire outlook for many areas of the U.S. housing market. Through my research, I've identified 10 critical regions where water resources are disappearing at an alarming rate. Experts now predict that massive population relocations will likely become necessary in these areas. Right now, millions of people are buying homes in these high-risk zones, completely unaware that they may be setting themselves up for an impending financial disaster. In the coming sections, I'll show you concrete evidence, revealing the cities where underground aquifers are depleting, rivers are shrinking, and where authorities have already started halting new developments. Make sure to stick with me until we get to the number one spot. It's a major urban center that continues to be aggressively marketed by real estate agents, even as its water crisis worsens. If you own property in any of these locations, it's crucial to understand what's coming before the wider market catches on. Let's begin with number 10. Orlando, Florida. When you think of Orlando, you likely picture lush greenery, swamplands, giant theme parks, and the regular afternoon thunderstorms. With all that water imagery, it might seem absurd to think the city could face a water shortage. But after digging into the data, the reality couldn't be further from the vacation destination image. The Central Florida Water Initiative has revealed that the region is currently pulling about 800 million gallons of water daily from the Florida aquifer. While that figure might seem manageable on the surface, experts have set the sustainable threshold at closer to 760 million gallons per day. This means Orlando is already withdrawing more water than it should, depleting its reserves at a rate much faster than anticipated. The consequences of this overuse are no longer hypothetical, they are already in motion and far more alarming than most people realize. Reports have shown that the excessive pumping is lowering underground water pressure, which allows salt water from the Atlantic to infiltrate the freshwater aquifer. Once saltwater contamination takes hold, the entire local water supply is compromised. Fixing this isn't as simple as using a water filter. It would require very expensive, complex technology. Adding to this dire situation, Orlando's population is growing rapidly. According to the Orlando Economic Partnership, the region is gaining about 1,000 new residents every week. This influx of people means more water is needed for things like showers, irrigation, and other daily uses, further straining a system that is already on the brink. Experts are now raising serious alarms, predicting that by 2025, the demand for water in many regions will significantly surpass the available supply. If you're thinking of purchasing a vacation home in these areas, it's crucial to ask yourself a tough question. What happens to property values when the water supply turns salty and undrinkable? Before we move on to our next city, if you appreciate the depth of this research, please take a moment to like this video. It helps support ongoing investigations like this one. Number 9 on our list is Atlanta, Georgia. My attention then shifted to the northern part of the country, specifically to Atlanta, which has been precariously balancing water security for years. Unlike many large urban areas that sit above massive aquifers or next to major rivers, Atlanta is geographically less fortunate. Located along a ridgeline, the city relies almost entirely on surface water, specifically the Chattahoochee River and Lake Lanier, to supply its water needs. Here's where it gets concerning. Despite being frequently referenced, Lake Lanier is actually one of the smallest primary water sources supporting a metropolitan area of Atlanta's scale in the United States. A crucial historical moment stands out from the records. During the severe drought of 2007, Atlanta was within 90 days of running out of water entirely. This close call caused widespread panic, but instead of prompting significant change, development continued as if nothing had occurred. This near crisis wasn't a one-off. It was a stark warning. Data from the United States Army Corps of Engineers reveals that the capacity of Lake Lanier has been declining due to sediment accumulation. while the metro population has surged past 6 million residents. On top of that, Atlanta is involved in ongoing legal disputes known as the Tri-State Water Wars with Florida and Alabama, who have accused Georgia of monopolizing shared water resources and harming downstream ecosystems. Should the Supreme Court rule against Georgia, Atlanta could lose a significant portion of its water access virtually overnight. To complicate matters further, projections from the Atlanta Regional Commission suggest that the region's water demand could increase by as much as 50% by 2050. Imagine investing in property in a city that's constantly at risk of running out of water due to a drought or an unfavorable court ruling. If you live in or around Atlanta, I'd love to know, have you noticed your water bills rising? Share your experiences in the comments. Number 8 on the list is San Antonio, Texas. This city, known for its rich history, may face a much drier future. As I dug deeper into the data, one entity kept emerging as a central issue: the Edwards Aquifer Authority. San Antonio stands out for a concerning reason. It is one of the largest cities in the world that relies almost entirely on a single underground aquifer for its water supply. The Edwards Aquifer is geologically impressive, but it's also incredibly fragile. The water levels in the aquifer are closely tied to rainfall. When storms come through, the aquifer can recharge quickly, but in dry periods, those levels can drop at a rapid pace, creating a serious risk for the city's water security. The United States Drought Monitor reports that a significant portion of Texas has been facing prolonged drought conditions for years, continuously putting immense pressure on the region's water resources that the city struggles to replenish. As I delved into public records, one concerning trend became evident. San Antonio has been under some form of water restriction for nearly an entire decade. In an effort to ease the strain on the Edwards Aquifer, the city invested in a monumental pipeline project designed to divert water from another aquifer located more than 140 miles away. This ambitious project came with an astronomical cost, burdening local taxpayers with billions of dollars in expenses. Yet, many critics argue that this solution is nothing more than a short-term fix for a much deeper, more systemic issue. The future looks even more grim when you consider the long-term projections. According to the Texas Water Development Board, the state's population is expected to grow by over 70% within the next 50 years, while the available water supply is anticipated to decrease by nearly 18%. It doesn't take advanced mathematical skills to recognize how these two trends, skyrocketing population and shrinking water availability, are destined to clash. As the costs of maintaining water infrastructure continue to soar, the price of water is also climbing, and eventually, this financial strain will begin to affect housing affordability in a significant way. If you're considering investing in Texas real estate, it's essential to track water availability just as closely as you would follow mortgage rates or inflation reports. For more insights into these evolving risks within the housing market, consider subscribing for future updates. Next up, let's turn our attention to Denver, Colorado. Known for its stunning mountain views, hiking trails, and vibrant outdoor culture, Denver has long attracted newcomers eager to enjoy the natural beauty the area offers. However, many of these new residents may not realize that they're settling in the midst of a historic drought cycle that's gradually reshaping the region. Approximately half of Denver's water supply comes from the Colorado River Basin, located on the far side of the Rocky Mountains. And the news isn't good. Recent reports show that the Colorado River, which serves around 40 million people across 7 states, has seen its flow decrease by roughly 20% over the last century, with climate change playing a major role in this ongoing decline. This is not a temporary issue, it's a gradual collapse, and the river is being stretched beyond its capacity to sustain demand. Denver Water is fully aware of the crisis and has been working tirelessly to secure additional water rights, but these efforts are met with fierce legal disputes and substantial financial burdens. The situation is further complicated by a legal requirement that forces Denver to share any water shortages with other users, which means that as the river continues to shrink, the city will face mandatory water reductions. These cuts could have a profound impact on everyday life, from restrictions on watering lawns to limitations on basic household use. Another factor to consider is the city's rapid growth. Housing data reveals that the Denver metro area has been expanding quickly, replacing vast open spaces with concrete and urban development. This growth contributes to the formation of urban heat islands, which intensify evaporation rates and exacerbate the strain on the already limited water resources. Adding to the concern is research published in Science, which confirms that the ongoing mega-drought affecting the Southwest is the most severe in over 1,200 years. With a city so heavily dependent on a river facing such immense challenges, purchasing property here becomes a high-risk investment. While the breathtaking mountain views may seem priceless, the water required for daily living, including something as basic as flushing a toilet, will only become more costly and harder to access. If you know anyone thinking about relocating to the Rockies, please share this video with them. It's important they fully grasp the risks before making such a move. Now, let's look at number 6, Salt Lake City, Utah. At this point, the situation goes beyond being just concerning it's a genuine crisis. Salt Lake City isn't simply facing a water shortage. It's on the brink of a catastrophe that could render vast areas of the region uninhabitable. What's happening here isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's an existential threat. Over recent decades, the Great Salt Lake has lost around 2/3 of its size, shrinking significantly since the 1980s. I took a close look at NASA's recent satellite images, and the rate at which the shoreline is pulling back is hard to ignore. But the real danger doesn't lie in losing beautiful scenery or recreational areas. It's the toxic mess left behind as the lake dries up. The exposed lakebed is filled with arsenic, mercury, and other heavy metals that have accumulated over centuries. When the water evaporates, these harmful substances don't disappear. Instead, they turn into a fine, powdery dust. According to local atmospheric scientists, strong winds can pick up this contaminated dust and carry it through the air, endangering the health of millions in the Salt Lake Valley. This is not a theoretical risk. Experts are drawing comparisons to the environmental disaster at Owens Lake in California, but on a much larger and more dangerous scale. To make matters even worse, a report from Brigham Young University warns that, without swift and decisive water conservation measures, the Great Salt Lake could completely vanish within the next 5 years. If the lake dries up and the air becomes hazardous to breathe, property values won't just decline, they'll crash. After all, who would want to live in a place where something as basic as breathing could make you sick? If this information is shocking to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Would you personally risk living here under these conditions? Moving on to number 5, let's dive into Fresno, California. I headed straight to the heart of California's agricultural powerhouse to investigate what's happening in Fresno, and what I uncovered was truly alarming. This area has become ground zero for one of the most severe geological failures unfolding in real time. As drought conditions have made surface water from the Sierra Nevada increasingly unreliable, both farmers and cities have been forced to turn to groundwater as a last resort, pumping it out at an unsustainable rate just to survive. Data from the California Department of Water Resources clearly shows the dire consequences of this over-extraction. The aquifers beneath Fresno are being drained so quickly that the land above them is actually sinking. This phenomenon, known as subsidence, is happening here at one of the fastest rates anywhere in the world. In some areas of the San Joaquin Valley near Fresno, the ground has dropped by over 28 feet in the last century. This type of land collapse doesn't just show up in graphs, it has real, tangible effects, like destroying infrastructure. I found images of cracked bridges, distorted canals, and well casings jutting out of the earth after the surrounding ground caved in. Even more concerning, subsidence causes irreversible damage to the aquifer itself. Once the underground layers are compressed, they lose their ability to store water in the future. It's similar to crushing an empty soda can. You can never restore it to its original shape, no matter how much effort you put into it. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is now mandating significant reductions in water extraction. As a result, thousands of acres of farmland are likely to be taken out of production. With the agricultural economy shrinking, Fresno's housing market, which relies heavily on the success of agriculture, faces a grim future. What's unfolding here isn't just an environmental disaster. It's an economic one as well, with physical collapse happening alongside financial downturns. If you want to stay up to date on which housing markets could be safer, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on the next crucial updates. Next, let's talk about Albuquerque, New Mexico, number 4 on our list. My investigation took me to the arid desert landscape of Albuquerque, a city that is undeniably picturesque, but quietly running out of time. For many years, Albuquerque's growth was based on the belief that it sat atop a massive underground aquifer, one so vast that it was once compared to the size of Lake Superior. This assumption formed the basis of development and long-term planning across the region. Then, in the 1990s, the United States Geological Survey issued a startling wake-up call. Their research revealed that the aquifer was much smaller and more fragmented than anyone had imagined. The city had been relying on overestimated water supply figures for years, and by the time the truth was uncovered, significant, irreversible damage had already been done. To its credit, Albuquerque responded swiftly, implementing conservation efforts that drastically reduced water usage per person and became a national model of efficiency. However, when I took a closer look, I found that the city is now heavily dependent on the San Juan Chama project, which diverts water from the Colorado River basin. As we've already seen, the Colorado River is facing severe challenges. Adding another layer of concern, a study from Los Alamos National Laboratory warns that rising temperatures in New Mexico will accelerate evaporation while diminishing snowpack, the primary source needed to replenish both rivers and aquifers. As a result, Albuquerque is left in a precarious situation, relying on two failing sources of water, a depleting underground reserve and a shrinking river system upstream. I also examined recent housing market trends in the area. While home prices have risen, the long-term question of whether there will be enough water to sustain a growing population is highly uncertain. Buying property in Albuquerque means investing in a desert environment that grows hotter, drier, and more strained with each passing year. If you agree that developers should be required to disclose water risks to potential buyers, hit the like button to make your voice heard. Finally, number 3 on our list, Los Angeles, California. This sprawling metropolis, the second largest city in the United States, is often seen as a place where money can solve any problem. But the deeper I investigated, the more it became clear that even the wealth of Los Angeles won't be enough to fix the looming water crisis. Historically, Los Angeles wasn't built on local water resources. It was built on imported water. And now, that very foundation is beginning to crumble. I followed the 3 key water sources that sustain Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Aqueduct, which brings water from Owens Valley, the Colorado River Aqueduct, and the State Water Project that transports supplies from Northern California. What's truly alarming is that all 3 of these vital systems are currently under immense pressure. This isn't a single, isolated problem, it's a convergence of multiple crises, and no amount of new infrastructure or pumps can resolve them. According to internal reports and public records, environmental regulations are already limiting the amount of water that can be transferred from Northern California in order to protect endangered fish species. Meanwhile, Owens Valley is on the brink of collapse, its water drained after decades of over-extraction, leading to toxic dust storms and ongoing legal disputes. The Colorado River, as we've previously noted, has now entered a Tier 2 shortage, meaning even more significant water cuts are on the horizon. These aren't abstract warnings anymore. The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California has officially declared a water shortage emergency, forcing millions of residents to limit outdoor watering to just 1 day a week. History provides an uncomfortable lesson. Civilizations that fail to secure a reliable water supply don't endure for long. Los Angeles real estate already commands some of the highest prices in the country, meaning the financial risks are massive. If water rationing becomes a permanent fixture of life here, the value of owning property in this city could plummet faster than most people expect. Please share this video with anyone you know in California. These are crucial facts they need to understand before it's too late. Moving on to number 2, let's take a closer look at Las Vegas, Nevada. I ventured deep into the Mojave Desert to explore Las Vegas, a city that represents one of the boldest wagers humans have ever made against nature. From an outsider's perspective, it might seem unstoppable, but its survival is entirely dependent on a single, precarious water source. Approximately 90% of Las Vegas's water comes from Lake Mead, the vast reservoir formed by the Hoover Dam. This dependency is becoming increasingly risky. After reviewing the latest data on Lake Mead's water levels, the situation is genuinely alarming. The lake has dropped to record lows, to the point where intake pipes that were once submerged are now visible above the waterline. In response to this crisis, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has invested nearly $1.5 billion into constructing a third intake pipe known as the third straw, positioned at the very bottom of the reservoir. This project is designed solely to maintain water flow if the lake continues to drop. Despite these efforts, Las Vegas has become a leader in water recycling, returning almost all indoor water back into the system. However, even the most advanced conservation methods have their limits. The city cannot control the massive evaporation losses from Lake Mead, nor can it stop water reductions from upstream states. If the lake ever reaches dead pool status, where no water can pass through the Hoover Dam, Las Vegas would be completely cut off, isolated with no remaining water source. The signs are already becoming clearer. New regulations are banning ornamental grass, and it's likely that even stricter measures will follow soon. It's also important to note that the federal government has the authority to drastically reduce Nevada's water allocation if the shortages continue to worsen. Now, picture trying to sell a property in a city where its primary water source has turned into a shrinking mudflat. If this new perspective has made you rethink things, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. At number 1 on our list, we find the most urgent flashpoint in the American water crisis: Phoenix, Arizona. This city stands as the clearest warning of what lies ahead. Phoenix has been one of the fastest-growing housing markets in the country, despite being located in an arid desert where the heat continually breaks records year after year. This stark contrast should be a red flag. But what I uncovered goes far beyond common sense. During my research, I came across a significant announcement from the Arizona Department of Water Resources that should have sent shockwaves throughout the real estate market, but shockingly, it barely made a dent. The state officially acknowledged that the groundwater supplies in the Phoenix area will not be sufficient to meet future demand over the next century. As a direct result, officials have halted the issuance of assured water supply certificates for new housing developments on the city's outskirts. This single decision has put the brakes on large-scale suburban expansion around Phoenix, something that has driven the city's housing boom for years. When I delved deeper into the report, the figures were staggering. It projected a water shortfall of nearly 5 million acre-feet. Developers are now scrambling to find ways around these regulations, but no loophole can defy the hard facts of geology. The era of unchecked suburban sprawl that made homes in Phoenix affordable and abundant is quickly coming to a halt. If you buy a home on the fringes of Phoenix today, there's a very real chance that within the next decade you could find yourself dependent on trucked-in water or a well that's drying up. As temperatures rise, water supplies shrink, and the housing market pushes forward as though nothing is amiss. The situation becomes increasingly dire. This isn't just a collection of alarming statistics, it's a roadmap leading to inevitable financial collapse. These 10 cities are colliding with the undeniable realities of geology and climate that no amount of flashy marketing can fix. Whether you're an investor or a homeowner, you need to look beyond the polished countertops and fancy finishes and consider what's behind the walls, specifically the water pipes. When the water runs dry, property values won't just drop, they'll disappear entirely. I'll continue monitoring these trends and provide updates as conditions evolve. To stay ahead of these developments and protect your investments, be sure to subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment sharing which city you think will be the first to face a severe crisis. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to bringing you more insights in the next investigation.